Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Smith. I'm Board of Education staff, and I'm here as liaison for Board Member Pamela Boozer Struthers. Just for some technology support, if you would mute your mics when someone is speaking, and also raise your hand if you have a question when we get to the discussion section. Katie is going to be our facilitator. I want to turn this over right now to Board Member Pamela Boozer Struthers because she's so excited about the Climate Change Action Plan Focus Work Group and looks forward to working with everybody. We all do. So welcome aboard, and Pamela, here you go.
All right, thank you. And are we now viewable by the public?
We are. We're viewable by the public, and we're also recording.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, I'm so pleased to welcome all of you to our first meeting of the PGCPS Board of Education Climate Change Action Plan Focus Work Group. My name is Pamela Boozer Struther, and I'm the Board of Education member representing District 3. I'm also the proud sponsor of this work group, along with student member of the board, Nina Jackson. This work group has been more than a couple of years in the making. When I look around our Zoom room, I'm reminded of my first conversations with many of you as advocates for clean energy and net zero energy schools, for electric buses, for sources of sustainable foods and composting food waste, for green jobs training, and for PGCPS's Green Schools program and environmental education curriculum. I have also met many of you for the first time as we have built this team of experts who will now dedicate your volunteer time to give PGCPS sound direction for reduction of our carbon footprint and to reach the goals outlined in the board resolution. And I want to thank all of you for your service. I would like to especially acknowledge Joseph Jakuda, leader of Climate Parents, Prince George's of the Sierra Club. Joseph has been instrumental in building the grassroots support for our work group and was the primary author of our work group structure and resolution that received unanimous approval by my Board of Education colleagues. I thank my colleagues for their trust in us, and I look forward to broader engagement by the board as we move forward in our work. My colleague Sonia Williams, representing District 9, joins us on this committee as well as both a PGCPS budget and operations expert, as well as a net zero energy buildings expert. I would also like to thank PGCPS CEO, Dr. Monica Goldson, for her support of our work. I would now like to introduce Valerie Irvin, who is the liaison for our work group to the administration and who will bring a welcome from Dr. Goldson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, like Board Member Boozer Struther and Board Member Vice Chair Sonia Williams, are very excited to be with all of you today. This is one of the most exciting work groups that I've had the pleasure of representing Dr. Goldson on, and she herself couldn't be more thrilled about the work that you are all about to embark upon. And she sent a letter to all of you, basically outlining what she hopes to see this working group accomplish. And I want to read just a couple of lines from the letter that she wrote, because I think it really underscores her support for what you're doing. In the letter, she says, PGCPS is proud to be at the leading edge in committing to climate solutions and for exploring innovative approaches to reducing our impact on the planet. We are honored that you are willing to support this effort and to share your expertise in order to make this climate action plan a reality. This effort will lead to healthier buildings, cleaner and transportation options, healthier and sustainably grown food for our children, reduction of our overall carbon footprint, and ultimately a plan that will help us focus our limited resources more equitably. So on her behalf, I will be on all of the meetings and working behind the scenes with many of you. So I'm very excited to get started. Thanks. And so I guess Pam is now going to go over the resolution, the board resolution, in more detail.
Actually, before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and share some slides and use those. My name is Kate Colsoni. I am really excited to be here with you all today. I'm a proud parent of a PGCPS first grader at Cesar Chavez Elementary. And I've done most of my career focused on stakeholder engagement around environmental issues and focused on facilitating community-driven solutions, specifically related to fisheries policy and management. We helped develop the 2016 City of BOE Sustainability Plan, and a focus group on nutrient trading for the state of Maryland. So looking forward to working with you all over the next few months. And let me share my screen, do more than one thing at once. So just let me know if anyone can't see the slide deck in front of you. Okay, so overview for today. The objective of today is really to set the stage for this entire process and effort. So you've heard some welcomes, and we'll also do some introductions with the team and make sure that we're on the same page with everyone's expectations and shared purpose, and talk about some guiding principles for the process. We're also going to hear from Dr. Thornton on some background and historical facts on the PGCPS structure, and that's relevant to this entire process. So knowing where we've come from and where we are today in order to identify where we want to go. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Student Stakeholder Outreach Forum and what you want to accomplish in that first outreach effort that you do in May. And then we're going to close it up on reviewing the work group structure and process and some next steps. Does anyone have any comments or questions on the meeting today? Okay, so I want everyone to introduce yourself. So please say your name, the organization or stakeholder group that you represent, and give me 3 characteristics of what you want PGCPS to be in 20 years. Imagine PGCPS, and what are some characteristics that you think are important for a sustainable and carbon neutral future. So my name's Kate Colsoni. I'll go first. I represent my first grader, and trying to build community-driven solutions with you all. And 3 characteristics that I want PGCPS to have is innovation, inclusion, and being measurable. So let me look at oops, sorry guys. Pamela, why don't you go next? I'm going to go in order of how I see you all. You're on mute.
I'm going to ask for a quick pass because I'm helping some of our work group members enter with us. So I'll if you could circle back to me, that would be great.
Of course. Let's go to David Hill. Well, you're on mute as well, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Hill from the Transportation Department. I want to see a clean future. I want to see the future, and what I see is a clean future. So that's what I would like to see. I would like to operate the Transportation Department more efficiently. And last but not least, safety. Safety is my #1 priority. So we have to think about safety always last, and safety should never be compromised.
Great. Kevin, can you go next? Kevin Kennedy, thanks.
Yes, I'm Kevin Kennedy. I am a member of Local 2250. I am a bus driver, and I work underneath Mr. Hill, who is a great guy. I can throw that in now, Mr. Hill, so you remember this when we're in front of each other again. I too believe that we need to get to where we are closer to carbon neutral, if not carbon neutral. Hopefully we can begin with our fleet of buses and even as far as the mechanical systems work, where we have the mechanics that run their own garages, that we can make them all closer to a green and more carbon-free state.
Thank you. All right, Joseph, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Joseph Jakuda. I'm the lead volunteer with the Sierra Club Climate Parents Campaign in Prince George's County. And I guess in 20 years, I definitely would like to see us nearing, if not at carbon neutrality in Prince George's County schools. I also hope we're known as a leader in climate progress in the educational field in the region. And I hadn't come up with my third one yet. So, but I think it involves educating the future generations of students on the technologies of the future.
Thanks, Joseph. Michael Smith, or Michelle Smith, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Michelle Smith. I'm an assistant principal here in Prince George's County at Largo High School. I guess what I see in 20 years is that all our students are socially aware and understand it's their civic responsibility in order to have a low carbon and sustainable community. Prince George's County, that we are all aware of that. We make sure our students are aware of that through various means of communication. But the other thing is for our students to understand the post-secondary opportunities and jobs that go with sustaining a community that is energy efficient and low carbon.
Thank you. Okay. Next, let's do is it Merida or Merida?
Marita.
Merida, thank you.
Hello, I'm Marita Roos with the Neighborhood Design Center on Stormwater and Land Use. So I'm going to steal other people's words, of course. Innovative, certainly. I'd love to see, and I don't know the word for this, but engaged. I'd love to see the students engaged with the outdoors, and I'd love to see a curriculum that's multifaceted and really explores the outdoors and the resources.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Don Holton.
Good afternoon. My name is Dawn Holton. I'm a senior mechanical engineer at PGCPS in the Capital Programs Office. I'm also the supervisor of the design department. And so we do a lot of work with construction projects around the district. And the three characteristics I would like to see in 3 years will be, one, for us to continue to be intentional about our design processes, including all of those educational facets into the designs, and not just trying to fix things. The second one, I would love for us to be more mindful of our usage. When you get to hear from Jamie Alston, another panel member here, working with her has really made me see that we really have to do a lot better with that. And third, I would like to see is to be more innovative. I kind of felt like in the 5 years that I've been here that we do move forward with new technologies, but I think we can do better. And maybe it's a training gap or some other thing, but I would really like to see us move further forward in that aspect.
Thank you, Don. Mary Lehman.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can see and hear me. I am having trouble on my computer, so I'm actually joining you by cell phone. But I am a state delegate, and I represent District 21, which in Prince George's County is College Park, beginning at the University of Maryland's campus, and going up the US Route 1 corridor to include Beltsville, the city of Laurel and West Laurel, as well as part of Adelphi. I want to thank Pamela for inviting me to be on this climate change action work group. And I guess the three things, it's probably a repetition of mostly what other folks said, but I'd love to see PGCPS be a statewide leader in sustainability, to be carbon neutral, and to have the most, what I'm going to call climate savvy students in the state of Maryland.
Thank you. Let's go to Michael Harris.
Hi, my name is Michael Harris. I am a Senior Capital Projects Manager at BOE State University, where we have already undertaken some significant solar energy projects. So my desire would be to see that, since this will be a big contribution towards reaching carbon neutrality, that within those next 20 years, that at least maybe 50% of energy used by the PGPCS come from alternative energy resources. And to touch on the point that other people made, in doing so, I would look forward to student involvement. And also someone mentioned the future of jobs in alternative energy, which is growing. Many people may not realize it, but at least up to a few years ago, there were more people employed by the solar industry than by the coal industry. So this is only going to grow, exponentially. So I think it's not an unreasonable target to talk about at least 50% of energy being generated by alternative sources.
Thank you. Don Goldberg.
Hi, my name is Donald Goldberg. I'm the Executive Director of Climate Law and Policy Project. For the last few years, we've started to focus on schools and school buses, electric school buses and net zero schools, working some with legislators in the state on those issues. Three things I would like to see in PG County, and by the way, I probably should mention that I live in Montgomery County, but this is something that we have to work on countywide, statewide, and nationally. And tomorrow there'll be a big international summit on climate change, and you all can watch if you are so inclined. The three things, I would kind of look at it on two axes. I mean, just really simply, I think there have been, and probably, some people in this group know more than I do about actual building costs and capital costs, energy saving potential, but I'd like to see all net zero schools. I think that the time is right. I think the capital costs have virtually disappeared, and there's a lot of money to be saved. I'd like to see electric school buses, and I would like to see us start renovating old schools that, if they're going to keep operating, they certainly can be made much cleaner and more energy efficient. And I would just say one other thing, even though my organization is called Climate Law and Policy Project, we do not believe in focusing only on climate change as our metric. As some of you have already mentioned, health and educational benefits can also be achieved in this process. So those are important criteria that we want to keep in mind. Thanks.
Thank you. Donald Bell.
Greetings. My name is Donald Bell, and I'm an environmental outreach educator with the William Schmidt Center, the Outdoor and Environmental Education Center for Prince George's County Public Schools. I also serve on the Prince George's County Climate Commission as well. And the three things that I had in mind were one, in 20 years, that everyone is knowledgeable, right? And so that includes not just our students, of course, we want to have curricula and programming opportunities inside and outside of schools for them, but also all of our staff members throughout the district, throughout the county, as well as our residents, because we want service learning opportunities where our students can communicate to their neighbors as well. And so we want everyone knowledgeable, we want everyone healthy. We know that actions that will decrease our carbon footprint also have positive health benefits, like cleaner air. And so we want our students, we want our county and our residents to be healthy and then prosperous. It was mentioned a few times in terms of secondary, post-secondary careers that are associated with green energy, as well as several of the other factors that go along with the items that have been set, but also there are other economic factors and benefits as well with this approach. So knowledgeable, healthy, and prosperous.
Thank you. Jamie Alston.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity today. I am Jamie Alston, and I serve as a management analyst within the Division of Supporting Service, the Department of Building Services. And what I hope to get out of this work group is, number one, that we as a district will truly become, many of you have already said this, but resilient, truly sustainable, and truly energy efficient, that we will become really, really, really good energy stewards of both the environment and also of our resources. I also hope that as we are the second largest school district in the state of Maryland, and we have other metrics that we define ourselves as throughout the world, I hope that we will be, and you said this, a thought leader that others will come to find out, hey, you know, how do you all do it? How are you successful? And they will be able to will become worthy of being emulated and followed. And finally, as you all have said, I hope that Prince George's County Public Schools, through this collective partnership with this work group, will become the top producer of graduates who will not only pursue careers in environmental science, energy management, but just over at Largo High School, when they build those electric cars and race them in every year, that we might have the next Tesla builder from Prince George's County Public Schools, or the next person who comes up with a building automation system that we can use here so that we can track our schools doing like a COVID environment and know what every facility is producing in energy. And they'll do many other things that will impact us collectively.
Thank you, Jamie. That's very inspiring. So let's go to our students. Asia Gray.
Hi, everyone. My name is Asia, and I guess the organization that I represent are the people, the students of Prince George's County Public Schools. And I think 3 goals that I want for this plan are for it to be equitable, for us to have in plan something to have the resources distributed in a manner where every student is, you know, receiving all the benefits of our wonderful plan, whether it's like curriculum or the food aspects of the plan. I want to make sure everyone receives an equitable amount. I also want it to be representative. A lot of the times when we're talking about climate change action plans, you don't really see some of the faces, like the very diverse ones that we have making the plan. 1 second. Okay, sorry. Making sure that everybody is represented in this plan and that our very diverse students of Prince George's County Schools are represented in this plan and that their voices are heard as far as input. And I also am going to steal a word, innovative. I want to come up with new ways to approach climate change action plans in all aspects. And thank you.
Thank you, Asia. Let's go to Annette. Am I here? Is that, did I say that right?
Yeah, you did. Hi, everyone. I also represent PGCPS. I'm a student, flowers. And 3 things that I would like to see are more awareness in the county, especially students, about what affects the environment negatively, and like, you know, getting people to stray away from those things that, you know, have a negative impact on the environment in any way. I also want to see sustainable practices in schools. So even through the plan that you guys are trying to, you know, enforce, I want it to be very effective so that we're able to use it throughout the years and it will last and be very effective. Also, I want to be able to see replacing carbon with renewable and cleaner sources of energy. So also going on the carbon neutral path. And those are 3 things that I would like to see in the next 20 years.
Thank you. Alvita Addison.
Hi, yes. My name is Alvita Addison, and I actually represent the community. I belong to several organizations in our area, and I'm a resident of Prince George's County. I'm also a proud alum of Howard University. So I hope that I can use some of the information even with the students at Howard. I would like to see the committee in 20 years be involved in educating the entire community, also advocating, which is a little bit different than educating, and advocating for change, advocating for, I guess you could say, more community input in the way we actually look at our resources in Maryland and in Prince George's County specifically. I'd also like to see some kind of oversight, especially when it comes to accountability with politicians and business people, because a lot of times when they consider some of the, I guess you could say, the resources they need in order to be profitable, they do not consider the effects of the environment. And I think this group will have a lot of information that the community will need to help push the politicians and the business people in the right direction.
Thank you, Alvita. Sonia Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, let me thank Pam for initiating this group and inviting me to participate. I so appreciate her work and her thoughtfulness. And also, I'm happy to see a lot of faces that I haven't seen in a long time. That, you know, Don and Dawn, it's good to see you all. 3 things that I'd like to see happen in the next 20 years in PGCPS is that our buildings are not only built efficiently, the envelope is efficient, and how we operate our buildings would be efficient also. I'd like to see and have the ability for our students to see this in action, you know, have the measuring sticks so they can see it in action in the elementary schools with the bells and whistles to see how much energy they're saving or how much energy is being produced. And all the way to high school where we're giving them those opportunities to take on careers and learn skills that they could take out into the real world and actually earn an income from those skills. But then also I would like for those kids to learn about this and take this information home so that their parents can also learn about what they can do to improve the climate overall. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm seeing a lot of themes here. Let's go to Ramon Palencia Calvo.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you everyone for this invitation and opportunity. Ramon Palencia Calvo, I'm the Deputy Director of the Maryland Legal Conservation Voters. We are a statewide nonpartisan environmental organization, and I'm also direct our CHISPA program, which is a Latino outreach program that builds leadership. So we have our own strong voice in protecting our communities and our environment. And we do a lot of work in the Langley Park, Hyattsville areas in the county. 3 things that I would like to see. I would like to see a school district that is a leader in equitable climate solutions, not at the state level, but nationally, where other school districts can draw from our experiences and innovative solutions. I would like to see that. I also would like to see a healthy school districts that supports students in reaching their full potential because the buildings are healthy, the transportation system is healthy, food systems are healthier, So that's another thing that I would like to see. And finally, probably a school district where stakeholders are aware of all those changes that are coming, are active participating in designing and implementing, knowledgeable of the intersections of this work and how it affects their daily life, their pocketbook, their outcomes, their opportunities, the health outcomes, and also stakeholders that hold us accountable as we continue, as we are embarking in this planning process, and also the folks that will be implementing this plan that hold them accountable as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon. Ms. Dani Taveras.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dani, County Council member and Vice Chair of the Council of Prince George's, Dani Taveras. I represent District 2, which is the Langley Park area, Adelphi, Carroll Highlands, Louisdale, the Greater Chilham area, the City of Hyattsville, Brentwood, North Brentwood, and Mount Rainier. I worked with a lot of you. I'm basically almost married to Pam and Sonia in every way I can be. And I've worked very closely with Ramon and et cetera. And how can I forget my partner in crime? Now delegate, before my colleague, Mary Lehman, and I have passed many environmental legislative pieces together, and she was very much a leader in us being able to ban styrofoam, coal tar. We've banned fly ash sightings here. She helped ban. We worked together to ban fracking here in the county, and so we've been able to get a lot done here. With Ramon, we've been able to advocate on the use of the Volkswagen money from settlement money to be used for electric vehicles. And if you will notice that the American Jobs Plan by President Biden announced yesterday exhibited our electric bus fleet, the bus, on national television. So just a little bragging moment. And I also want to advocate for the fact that the Parks and Planning now, their whole fleet is converting to electric vehicles. So that's also something that's underway. And we could talk more about that. But in terms of what I'd like to see for PGCPS, I think we need to increase we need to address the concerns at the bus stations. We need to increase the electric charging stations there so that we can start to convert the bus fleet to electric vehicles. And if we're able to do that successfully, I think it will be significant in holding our own in lowering our carbon footprint. Second, I want to be able to look at the recycling and composting of our food within PGCPS. And I think some of the other issues were already touched on giving the curriculum and access through CTE and such for more green jobs like geothermal, solar, photovoltaic, et cetera. And I know it was only 3, but I wrote like 5. Sorry, y'all. And I do want to see how we can move our buildings, school buildings, at least the new ones coming down the pipeline, to have a net zero design, a net zero. We have several homes that we've constructed that are of a net zero standard. And I think that that's probably the direction that we should go in terms of being able to live off the grid. So, and that in between those issues, I think that we will be able to target the lowering of our carbon footprint significantly, in addition to whatever we could do to curb our usage of paper. And I've told a whole bunch of other stuff to Pam. She's got it all in her notes, but.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Ms. Valerie Irvin.
So much has already been said, but there are a lot of statewide leaders on this call that have done incredible work, not just in Prince George's County, but across the state of Maryland. And you just heard from one, Councilmember Taveras, but Mary Lehman has been outstanding as a representative for all of us. So it's really good to be on the call with them. One thing I will say is that, and I know if Dr. Goldson was on this call, she would say how proud she is to have students participating. And I wanted to kind of shout out Asia Gray for a minute, because she said something very profound in her comments about diversity and equity. And I think it's really, really important that we pay attention to race, class, gender, and community in Prince George's County in terms of our ability to participate across all lines, because we cannot build the future that we want around climate change without everybody's participation. So it's really, really good to see the students in this arena.
Thank you. Just a few more. Dr. Thornton. Dr. Thornton, are you there?
He might be joining us a bit later during his scheduled time.
Okay, let's go to David Smith and then to you, Pam.
So I'm here as board staff, but I'm also a parent and an advocate. And so I'm all for, clean and green environment. And so I just look forward to supporting Pam and the committee, and hopefully we can bring some great resolution to our school district, because, and it's good to see the students on here, because the students are going to be the ones that can really take this and push this, by leading by example, so I'm glad to see that they're on here, and I look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you. Pamela, we're going to close it out with you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. So many powerful statements, and the alignment of our vision and goals. And I think some of the things I've been thinking about are that I want PGCPS to have a reputation of yes on the environment and climate change, that we are a step ahead, that we are partners to our environmental advocates and ready to get the work done in our system, and also a good partner to our county council and state legislatures, that we can have the open lines of communication where we really address the issues which we are about to document, so that we can all work together on these solutions. And definitely top of that is the student-driven programs and solutions, and really listening to how students want to contribute, and then how we take that as individuals in our school buildings and bring those back to our homes. I've been a big fan of composting for more than a decade at home, and I was kind of ashamed when I learned about composting so late in life. I think I was about 40. And I was like, how did I not understand the impact of sending my food waste to the landfill? And I just felt like an absence of education. But then in that, I became such an advocate for it, and just a vision that we can get this done in our schools. And, there are just, programs that we can do it. But it's the folks in our buildings who are going to have to let us know how we're going to get that done. And also, I'm a huge fan of net zero energy schools. Everyone who's said that we can build NZE schools at the same cost as traditional, all the data is telling us that, and we're gonna make that case for PGCPS. And then, of course, the electric school buses for clean air and health of our children. So I just, I'll just close out there, and I'm just super excited about the work we're going to get done together.
Great, thank you, Pamela. And I think we have Chloe Waterman that just joined us on the phone. Chloe, do you want to introduce yourself? Talk about who you represent and 3 words that that describe PGCPS in 20 years as a sustainable entity.
Hi, yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. It's been really inspiring hearing what everybody else has suggested. I'm Chloe Waterman. I'm a program manager at Friends of the Earth, which is an environmental and social justice nonprofit, and I'm also the co-chair of our Food Equity Council here in Prince George's County. And I would like to see PGCPS really taking a whole health approach when it comes to our students and their health and their education. Kids are nourished with healthy and climate-friendly food. We're really centering, as Asia put it, racial equity in the approach that we take to climate mitigation, and also that really focuses on resiliency, given that, this is 20 years from now, and we do expect to see some changes in the climate, even if we are pretty successful in mitigation efforts. So thinking about how the county would accept climate refugees, as how we would ensure that we have, a stable and nutritious food supply for our students, are all things that, I hope that we could, start to consider through this process. But yeah, thank you again for the opportunity to be part of this.
Great, thank you. So before we really dig into the content for today, I want Pamela to review the resolution, because this will essentially be the charter for the work group process over the next few months. It establishes the objectives that you all are going to attempt to accomplish, and what the deliverable is at the end based on your timeline. So Pamela, I'm going to send it over to you to talk about the resolution a bit.
Okay, great. And do we have this? Okay, there it is. The slide with the resolution. So one thing I did want to call out. It was noted by Donald Bell, the county commission on climate action, led by Councilmember Dernoga, is underway in setting clean energy goals as well. And it's very important to us as PGCPS to state our goals and to work on that alignment. And then, of course, from the national perspective, I'm sure many of you feel same as I do, that we open up the newspaper and on page 1, there's climate goals coming from our administration and the leadership that we will take again. So, looking at our goals, of course, 100% clean energy source electricity by 2030, looking at, our energy sectors and heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and cooking by 2040, clean transportation by 2040, zero food waste by 2030, and zero landfill waste by 2040. And, some of this, the 2030 goals, I think, there's lots of good case studies and opportunities to help us really get to work right away on those to be able to meet those 2030 goals. Our climate action plan elements will ultimately have an action plan that the administration can implement. And we have at least one excellent model in the system recently of a board sort of policy action plan that came from our educational equity work. And that outlined about a 5-year plan of overarching goals and actions to get there. And I think at the end of this, we will be contributing to that type of plan that we can measure and contribute to. Our first update to the Board of Education will be July. So the board does take a summer break. So I would say it's probably will be I'm going to request for the final board meeting prior to the 6-week summer break. So that may actually end up being late June that we give our first update. And then, well, we were going to present the plan by October 1st. We did get started a little later than we had anticipated, as of course, we all worked through the difficulties of the pandemic and the focus on reopening hybrid. Now launching this a little later, I think what I will inform our board colleagues is that we may need another month or two to get maybe around December 1st would be that timeline. But I think we'll all have check-ins on that as we go through the process. So, I thank everyone for your commitment to monthly meetings, because we will certainly with each meeting have a process where we check in on how our steps towards that October 1st to December 1st final presentation. And I hope at that time we will actually all be able to be together in the Sasser building at a board meeting where we can actually present this and celebrate our work in person. But in the meantime, I think we'll be on Zoom through the vast majority of this work. So I guess back to you, Kate.
Thank you, Pamela. So everyone has taken some time to introduce themselves and express the deep knowledge and diverse experience that y'all are bringing to this process. You have your charge with the resolution over the next few months. And the exciting thing is that you all have a common vision for what you want to accomplish. So this may not be that hard. And one of the first things that Pamela and Joseph did was they wanted to check in with everyone. And I think they got 18 of the 22 folks. So if you haven't had your meeting with Joseph and Pamela, you will soon, just to check in to understand what your expectations were for this process, what your priorities were, and what type of stakeholder engagement you thought was needed to ensure that there was a broad and comprehensive buy-in for the climate change action plan. And we're not going to go over those in large detail because you just basically talked a lot about it in your introductions, but I'll put kind of the themes here and just what a couple of the words I read over and over again from your conversations with Joseph and Pamela was actionable, measurable, something that can describe how you're making a difference. You're identifying the biggest environmental impacts and how you're overcoming the obstacles that have occurred and that have been formed over the last few years based on decisions and funding or lack of funding. And then also the need for some strong stakeholder buy-in and the opportunity to build a network of colleagues with diverse experiences across your working group, and to be able to leverage that over and over again even after this process is over. So I think there's a lot of exciting work that will occur, and you all are in the glide path to do that. Some of your thoughts on stakeholder engagement, just to kind of coalesce it all, was some target audiences you identified. Students was a big one, parents, making sure all perspectives from all use cases was gathered, the labor and union perspective, making sure there was a focus on underserved communities, elected officials, and being targeted with those students. In addition, you identified some methods to engage. So facility walkthroughs was an idea that was discussed in the pre-discussions, making sure people understand and can see what's happening with the facilities and what the change can do for the buildings and to be carbon neutral. Roundtable discussions, culturally competent focus groups and topic and stakeholder specific focus groups, town halls, student surveys and competitions to drive innovation, And an appreciative inquiry is something that we did in the city of Bowie to develop the sustainability plan. And that was really getting groups together to discover their common ground from a historical perspective, and to dream about what they want to accomplish and then design around that. So helping to drive that innovation on what will be. So I'm going to stop for a second and just talk a little bit about the process for this group. This is your group. You know, I'm only here to help drive conversation and make sure everyone is feeling heard. So this should be the most I talk ever in these meetings, but you should, it's important to think about the guiding principles that will drive your process. And I think you can see some guiding principles forming from what you've heard from your colleagues, as well as what you've seen on the slides that we've presented already. But it's really about what the values that you want to have within this process, and then the behavior and decision making that will ensue because of that. So some examples are outlined there. I'm not going to read them for you, but I just want to stop for a second and get any thoughts you have on whether you think this working group needs to have guiding principles, and if so, what would you like those to be? And it'll just be a short conversation. We'll take it offline and start developing some specifics between meetings and present them at the next meeting. But let's take a few minutes to see if anyone has any thoughts. Has anyone been a part of a stakeholder process that's had guiding principles in the past?
I see Dani raising her hand.
Well, I have. I mean, we do as a council, we have a retreat every year, or particularly this is helpful at the very beginning of a new term. And so for us, I don't know, I take those types of retreats and conversations very much to heart. For me, we've been able to really hone in and focus on what are these core values that we want to, base our objectives on. And so.
Right. I mean, it's kind of your North Star when you're trying to develop your recommendations at the end. Are we doing what we set out to achieve? Are we doing it in the way that we believe is? Go ahead.
In a way that is consistent with what you want to do.
Exactly. So I have 3 identified here. One is about work group buy-in, keeps changing on me, and how you want to make decisions within the working group process, whether you want it to be consensus driven as much as it can be, or you want to do majority vote. I think that's up to you. It's a value that you all will have as a working group. Another element that we heard in the pre-discussions was about everything being data driven, science driven, and making sure that it's measurable and having a positive environmental impact. So that hits the second one, and then the third one is mostly about stakeholder engagement. So I'm not suggesting that these need to be your guiding principles, and you can put some thought to it a little bit in between meetings. But I think if the group can come up with some ideas that can help drive whether you're, how you decide on what recommendations you include in the end, and what the values were that you had when you were building the action plan, so you can communicate that well to your stakeholders. Any other thoughts on that? And I can't see everyone, so please come off mute if you have anything else to add. Okay, so like I said, we'll send out some ideas and food for thought between meetings, and we'll encourage you to have that discussion online. So at the next meeting, you can finalize guiding principles for this process. All right, the next, I'm gonna give it to Pamela again, and she's gonna introduce Dr. Thornton, who will talk about the historic perspective of PGCPS.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna see if Dr. Thornton is ready to come on the screen. Let us know he's here. Give him a second.
Hey Pam, before you go on, I have to go do new teacher induction for
Oh, all right.
learning.
Well, thank you for being here.
But I'll be at the next one. They need me on at 4:30 to speak for their plenary.
All right, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
At the next meeting.
All right, so it's my pleasure to introduce to everyone Dr. Alvin Thornton, who has recently served as the chair of the Board of Education, and it was such an honor to serve with him during those 2 years. But of course, he has served in that role in the past and is truly the historian of PGCPS of the last many decades of considerable change in our system, and knows all of the sort of policy and legislative history of our and funding of our system that leads us to when we get to big questions of today. And we've certainly been asking those very directly for the last few years on equity in education funding. And as you know, Dr. Thornton was the leader in the state of Maryland for the Thornton Commission that identified equitable funding throughout the state for our public school systems. And then most recently, a champion of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future in the Kirwan Commission. And as we've asked those questions, we certainly look at, I think it's something that many of us, and admittedly, sometimes when we are maybe new to the system as parents or residents of Prince George's County, we look at some of our school buildings and we're like, oh my gosh, how do we have so many old buildings? And then we think about our, the education in those buildings and our teachers and our students. So we think about the educational adequacy aspect, but then, all of us here, are like, whoa, how much energy are they guzzling? Like what, these buildings are also not efficient, and we see our budgets, and we see the money we're spending on utilities. So, all of this starts to add up, and we like, how do we get here, and how do we now work our way out towards net zero energy schools and clean transportation, and how those intersections of our funding priorities in education intersect. And Dr. Thornton, I just want to thank you so much for giving up some of your time today to give us some of that history, to sort of level set us so we understand where we've been and where we're going. So welcome.
Thank you so much. My former board colleague, who I just enjoyed working with. And in the absence of other board members, I want to extend greetings to them and thank them for authorizing your proposal to have this work group. It was a very visionary decision on the part of our Board of Education, and I appreciate that. Don't know if Vice Chair Williams is still with us, but I want to say personally to her, hello, and to Dr. Goldberg in her absence. I guess I'm an example of what we're trying to achieve, and that is a multi-generational attachment to public education that is not episodic. And I got involved in this stuff in 1971 as a parent of the children at the Spring Hill Lake Elementary School, and I'm still involved. And that's really what we want to try to achieve, right? That there is a multi-generational attachment to children, not our own, or not our particular group, or not our particular community, but a multi-generational attachment that we invest ourselves in. It's been very challenging for that to happen in Prince George's County, not just in Prince George's County, but in all of America, right? But particularly, it's very difficult to do that. One's attachment to the public space where children are tends to fluctuate depending upon demographic changes, political decisions and differences, and et cetera. And in that space, you get to some extent what we're trying to overcome. I think if we can commit ourselves to multi-generational attachment to the public spaces where children are, right? Then this, whatever difficult decisions we have to make will be easier. So I offer myself up, and there are many of us around, right? Many of you are like that, right? That we are 35, 40-year people who are attached to this particular issue. What you are doing on this group, and I want to thank each of you for being willing to step up and accept Board Member Boozer Strother and our Board of Education, Dr. Golson's request to serve on this group. This is a very, very important group because it is about climate change, but it really is about equity. It's climate, but it's really about equity. And how do we make sure that there is environmental justice for children in a social space that we call public education? Now, people beat up on Prince George's County about a lot of things, but one of the things it's always been very good at, and that is raising questions of equity and justice and forcing it on all of us, the population, the elected officials, the General Assembly, the Federal Council, et cetera, is to raise the issue of equity. And this climate change issue, as I heard you all articulate your wishes and desires, is about equity. Will all children have the right to be in an education space that is modern, that is resourced, that has the appropriate technology, that has the appropriate environment for them to learn, and that's not a function of what particular municipality they may be in. Now, climate change, just like the national issue, right? It's fraught with all kinds of ideological and partisan and political and other kinds of issues. But at the end of it, it is about making sure, when it comes to public education, that our children are in a sustainable environment where there are resources, long-term planning resources that are available to school administrators and others to plan for that environment for those children. And that's why when I left the Board of Education in 1999 as the chair, I chaired the board throughout the 90s, as many of you all know. And one of the reasons why I left the Board of Education to go to the state and raise questions of equity was because I knew that municipally specific resourcing and decision-making as the sole and primary decider for the fates of children was not workable, that was not going to work, that you had to have a broader political and resource context in which those decisions were made. And that's why we did the Bridge to Excellence that the state took some credit for. And it's on that shoulder that the blueprint for Maryland's future has been passed. And we want to give great thanks to our legislators and our council members and all of us who came together around that. Because what you all are talking about here is going to require sustainable, predictable resourcing, right? To implement all the things that I saw in the fire. Sustainable, predictable, long-term resourcing. And that's what the blueprint for Maryland's future is, as it built upon the Bridge to Excellence that the Thornton Commission created. All of it is based upon equity. If we call it anything other than that, we're missing the boat. It is about equity. All children should have the equal access to what? Excellent climate and environment, right? They should not have health consequences that are a function of the climate in which they happen to be educated or reside. It's a question of equity, and they have a fundamental citizenship right to do that. One of the things that we have to do, which is why I'm so happy that you all are doing the climate change work group, is that we have to make sure that we have paradigms under which people who differ about a lot of things can come together in oneness. One of the things that our county has been most fraught with, especially since 1972, when the county began to be demographically diverse and we faced questions of busing and racial discrimination, racial school desegregation, all of that, we've had paradigms that separate us and segment us and divide us against ourselves and our children. And every time we get a chance to create a paradigm that is broad enough to be inclusive, that creates a oneness and a governing consensus over our children, we ought to take advantage of it. Well, this is one of them. What you all are doing is one of them. It is about climate, but please see it as the next paradigm, the umbrella, I call it, under which our children can reside, and more importantly, under which we can reside together, right? Not partisan, not, whatever differences we may have. Well, this is one of those paradigms. This is an equity paradigm, and I want you to please see it that way. I certainly see it that way as we try to deal with some of the issues that may get us in the news and all of that, right? If we have a broad paradigm like this, a paradigm shift, that is not forced on us, but we do it because it is in the best interest of our children. It is also in our best economic and interest, as you all have articulated, right? It's in the best interest of our county and ultimately in our state. So let's please view it that way. It is the only way for us to be accountable to our children. Now, I will say this in closing. We have a great opportunity at this moment in the history of our county. The blueprint to learn, the bill to learn, the blueprint for Maryland's future, the legacy of the Bridge to Excellence, the consensus about all of this that you hear reflected in this discussion tonight. This is an opportunity for us to create the next paradigm that can unite Prince Georgians around their children. I will say this, if we do not do it, we know we have recent and not so recent examples of what happens. We get fractured, we get divided. We didn't build one school for our children between 1978 and 2000 and 1998, not one school. And there are reasons we didn't do it. We didn't have an overriding paradigm that united us around what our children needed. We did not do that. We did not properly fund our children's schools between 1978 and 1998. And now we can blame a lot of people, but we didn't have a consensus paradigm of the type that can emerge from you all's work and the work of this board and our school leaders and our council members. So as an old head, as a grandfather of 3 children in the school system, as a father of 2 daughters who were excellently educated by the school system, I thank you, for the work that you're doing. And I hope that you will hear what I'm trying to say to you in terms of the importance of the climate change work that you're doing, and see it as an equity question, as an umbrella under which we can unite ourselves over our children to ensure that they have a future that's not a function of who they are, as Elijah Cummings said, to whom they're born, or where their parents can afford to live. So thank you very much. And I don't know if you can have another member of your committee, Ms. Boozer-Strother, but I'd like to be an ex officio.
I'd love for you to serve.
Very excited. I'm just so excited about this. It's a new paradigm shift and it's something that is so important. So thank you all so much.
Gosh, thank you so much, Dr. Thornton. And I just love how your framing of that we could really see this as something that unites Prince George's County. And I love that. And I certainly know that I am going to play my part in making sure that we, like I said, build these excellent relationships with our county council and the commissioners that are working on the Climate Action Commission, and then all the way up to the state with Delegate Lehman and all of her colleagues to ensure that. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Thornton that they would like to ask at this time?
It's okay.
Reflections?
Always ask, you know me. I mean, the thing is,
my favorite councilwoman. Go ahead.
I mean, you just gave an incredible story, an incredible trajectory of the challenges that were faced by African Americans inside the county. But I would venture to say that now we have Latino students also struggling, and I know that has we've worked to try to correct that, but there's still so many challenges with regards to representation. I was just talking to someone about the fact that these kids in the system right now have no sense of self, no grounding, no sense of who they are, where they came from, where they're going. They have no sense of nation. Anybody can put in a shirt and say that they're Central American, Salvadoran, whatever, but they don't know really what that means. They don't know where the commonalities are. I mean, but that's a different conversation than the climate action. But I'm just saying that we have to do so much more to bridge and to feed that population properly, so that they too can strive to be great on purpose. And so we could strategize all day long about how we want to get that done. But I'm just saying, without having to do what you had to do, I'm just saying, how can we work together to get it done?
I sent to my colleague, the former colleague on the board, a report, and I don't want to confuse this conversation with the particular work of this group, but Ms. Boozer-Strother, if you'll share that with them. It was a 1985 report, which raised the questions that Councilwoman Taveras is just raised. An ad hoc committee on quality education in Prince George's County. And I would like for each one of you all to have it. Councilwoman Taveras, much of what you asked about is summarized in that report. And that is, how do you pull together unrepresented groups that are underrepresented to organize their thoughts and voices so that they can strategically present them to decision makers so change can be made. Now, in 1985, that was the Black community speaking to the largely white community leaders who were governing Prince George's County. As you read the report, as I go back and read it, I chaired that group, by the way, dating myself. You will see that the questions that you are raising are the same questions that were raised in 85. What is my point? My point is, let's not lose memory. Let us remember. Let us take advantage of what we've done before and how we've achieved. But this is why your work as a climate change group is so important. We do have to have unifying goals and things that are bigger than any particular unique interest that we have. That's the point. I think these two things must run parallel, because if they do not, as you know, a suburban urban community that is overwhelmingly children of color, Latina, Black, and lower income, you will never get the kind of political consensus that you need to address their interests.
I mean, we just lost a fight on swing space.
Well, so this is my point then, that we must spend some time, not this group, because we must spend some time in recovering memory, because you have to remember that most of the people engaged in the things we're trying to solve are fairly recent to the county. They don't know the things that some of us take for granted. And so we must spend some time recovering memory, understanding how we got over some of the things that we were trying to get over, saying that the price of repeating it is too high. Not building schools, that's why I always give the example of 1978 to 1998, is too expensive. You end up with 60-year-old elementary schools, average 50-year-old high and middle schools. Costs too high, right? The economic cost to our county in terms of its competitiveness, too high, right? The demographic shift of population in chase of otherness is too high. And the political consequences in terms of the divisiveness, too high. We all know that, but if we don't know that we've been through it before, we don't know the price and the cost of it. That's just why this work and building on the equity concept is so important.
Thank you, Dr. Thornton. I love paradigm where people can come together in oneness. That's such an important insight for this process and for the work group to hear. We really appreciate that. I'm just trying to be mindful of time. So I'm sure Dr. Thornton would be happy to answer any questions offline or after, you know, in another appropriate forum. But speaking of where people can come together in oneness, our next and last thing on the agenda is to talk about our first public forum and what the objective is for that. So Joseph, I know you and Pamela talked about it being a student forum. I'm going to share my screen. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what that might be and getting some input from the work group on that?
Joseph, are you going to start or should I jump in?
You can start on this one.
Yeah, and I of course would, you know, welcome Annette and Asia to, of course, elevate them, you know, themselves in this conversation as well. So the objective of having the students give us input as quickly as possible is we have a lot of class of 2021 students who have really been leaders in the system, and we really want an opportunity to hear from them before they graduate. And you know, their last day is coming up pretty quick. So what I was hoping, like, obviously we want to hear from wide range of students and grade level, but the timing of this is because I really want to hear from the class of 2021. So I'll say that I'll kick that off for conversation here about sort of methodologies of receiving this input. And I guess, you know, for folks who work closely with the students, sort of you know, we want to make sure the students know the value and the why take the time to participate. So I would love to hear some messaging around you know, how we communicate that so that students are excited to be part of this process.
Does Asia or Annette want to talk a little bit about what they view as should be the objective for this engagement with students? What do you guys think?
I think, oh, sorry, I meant to raise my hand, but
You're okay.
I think as a starting point, we can see what students know first. So what they know about the topic. And then from there, we can kind of explain our goals and set them out in kind of like layman's terms. I know a lot of times we use these like advanced terms, but just simplify it a little bit just so students can understand. And so we can capture a wide range of students where they are. And then from there, we can introduce some of the proposed ideas that we have, or just not even the ideas that we formally proposed, just some of the ideas we had, and kind of get their input on it or what ideas they would like to see to incorporate in our plan. I think that's a good starting point for this forum.
Great. So meeting the students where they are, I think that's great advice. Is there, do you think that this is a virtual forum?
Yeah, I think virtual would be pretty good.
Okay. And then is this with, do you think the targeted audience for students is the green teams or the general student population? What do you think the target audience should be? And that's for anybody. Ideas, administrators, teachers.
Well, I did discuss previously with Ms. Pamela that I think the green teams are a good idea because they kind of would normally come in with more knowledge as far as like environmental studies and climate, since that's what they do in their clubs and things of that nature. So they might have other ideas. But I did also express the importance of having the general student consensus on this issue because we're trying to do it for all students and even those who might not be interested at this time in, you know, environmental clubs. We need to get a good sense and a range, especially if we want this to be equitable. We have to really get a representative opinion from students.
Annette, do you have anything to add? What about anyone else in the working group? What do you think needs to be accomplished in this first student engagement in order to get the most information and guidance from them?
So Katie, I think Donald Bell raised his hand earlier when students were speaking. I don't know if he has something to share, but I saw his hand raised.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I do have to transition over to co-host. We're having our county Envirothon awards and review session, but I look forward to working with this team in terms of this particular topic. I can certainly reach out to all of the green clubs and organizations that I'm in contact with, but also I thought that was a great idea to cast a wider net as well for students that may not already be engaged in an environmental club also. So we will do everything in our power with our listservs to get the word out also. And I appreciate and look forward to working with the team. And I will get the guiding principles for the climate action, the climate commission, and share those with the team as well.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? So it sounds like, Pamela, do you want to work directly with the students and with some of the folks on the working group to put this engagement effort together and make sure the messaging is correct and the communication methods to get the word out are appropriate?
Yes, absolutely. I think we have the makings of our very first sort of breakout team in between meetings to move forward and action. So we will get that going. And then I guess I'd ask Valerie if we do end up doing some survey or development of questions for the forum, that we can maybe pass those by our team that reviews the data questions and for advice on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much.
Katie, Delegate Mary Lehman had her hand up also.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you, David, for noticing that. I wasn't sure if I was using the right tool. So I think one way we could, open sort of the dialogue with older students at least, would be to ask them something along the lines of, in what ways do you think your education could be made more, interactive and engaging on the environmental front if, every year after fifth grade, you did something or there was something similar to this sort of excitement of and the sort of hands-on experience of Camp Schmidt. Every student that goes through Prince George's County Public Schools, if you ask them what are their top 3, 4, 5 most memorable experiences, almost all of them will mention Camp Schmidt on that list. And in my one of the most impressive things that I saw happen around education issues in my 8 years on the council was my first term when CPS actually proposed to close Camp Schmidt as a bottom line issue, as a potential savings. The people that came out of the woodwork, former students, in some cases staff, parents, community leaders, elected officials that spoke, that came to budget hearings and told stories about Camp Schmidt and how it changed their lives, how it changed their perspective about the environment, how it was their first experience or awareness of the environment, environmental issues, and getting down on the ground into a stream, looking at water samples. It was so moving and so impressive, the impact that experience had on students. And I think if it were put in those kinds of terms, what would, how could the school system do better? And not just in a, sort of more, I guess, intellectual or, curriculum driven in a dry way, but put in, framed as an experience like that. There might not be an opportunity every single year to do Camp Schmidt or something on that level, but something similar where kids regularly are, getting outdoors, getting their hands dirty, learning about surroundings. I just think that is such, and has been for a long, long time, such a missed opportunity. And I really think we would get an earful.
Yeah, that's a great example. And if you can leverage that and institutionalize it in the students to come up with some ideas and innovation, then that would be a great use of time for this first public forum, and maybe to build off, to start it there and build off of it after that.
Hi, everybody. Unfortunately, I've got to go, but I do want to say that just for edification purposes, you might want to stay in contact with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments and in looking for their assistance. Conti is excellent, Jeffrey King, Maya Davis are key folks that you can look to for assistance on these kinds of issues, on building a climate action plan. And also Montgomery County, Frederick, the city of Frederick, Montgomery County have already drafts of, I know there's a different, the nature of what you guys are doing is a lot different than what they're offering, but just take a look and see if there's something either in the structure or what they looked for, just anything that can help guide where we're heading. Just something for you guys to, or for us to consider, but I'll leave that up to you. But thank you, everybody. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Dani. We'll look forward to seeing with you when you're here, when your schedule permits. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Tavares brings up a great point. There's a lot of resources that you all have that you should bring to bear in this work group process. And so I know it's 5 o'clock now. We're already over time. I'm going to give it to Joseph real quick just to talk about some of the collaborative platform that we're going to use to continue dialogue from month to month, and then and what the schedule looks like. And you can maybe start it off, Joseph, at the next meeting if we don't have time to do it tonight.
Sure. Well, I will try and be quick. We are planning our next meeting for a month from now, May 21st. No, actually, let me bring up my schedule. I was going
May
to
19th.
May 19th. Thank you. May 19th. And that the focus of that discussion will be on the legislative update and both from the state and county. So we will be hearing from Delegate Lehman, and I believe and Councilmember Tavares has been asked as well to talk at that meeting on those subjects. We are going to set up an email list. David is going to set that up so that we can communicate more regularly over email more easily. So that will be coming out shortly. Some of the things we're going to send around soon thereafter are going to be a draft of the future schedule. And through the conversations, and most of you have had them, that we're going to be taking a multi-facilitator approach to each of the meetings, because we want to rely on ourselves, given our experiences and expertise. We have some people penciled in for particular subjects, but we'll also need to talk over email about the few holes we have and make sure everyone's set with the topic that they want to be talking about and working on. We do plan on making sure our agendas are coming out a week before the meeting. And it looks like I have a child behind me. I'll be there in a minute, Zeke. Meeting summaries will also be sent out a week before the previous meeting, and we're going to also have a process where, in this case, it'll be the guiding principles. We'll be working over those over the next 2 weeks or so, and we'll have a sort of a draft final ready for the next meeting so that we can have a vote on proceeding with that particular item. We'll take that approach with every meeting, so to have a we are striving for consensus, but we want to make sure we have that sort of input decision point in each meeting to make sure what we covered in the last meeting is being properly accounted for. And we also have a Google Drive folder that was set up that will be sent around as well. And this will be a repository for all the slides, the agendas, the meeting notes, any sort of resources that we are going to have. And then as time moves on, the draft documents. So I guess that is about it as far as housekeeping. Did anyone have any last minute questions on that? Okay, well, I look forward to seeing everyone on May 19th and emailing with y'all and talking with you in the meantime. And I really appreciate everyone. And we'll turn it over to Pamela for the closing.
All right, thank you so much, Joseph. Again, thanks to Kate for her facilitation and again, like everyone else, volunteering her professional skills to bring to this and to make us an effective group. I loved hearing from everyone today. I love getting to know everyone and your passions and where we're headed. So with that, I'll look forward to seeing you on May 19th. Kate, do you have any final comments as our facilitator this evening?
No, I think it was, meeting everyone and hearing what you guys want to do and demonstrating the shared purpose you have for this it's going to be a great process, and I look forward to being part of it and engaging with you all.
All right, see you all next month. Thank you.